Hi, I'm Dr. Cass Spencer-Smith at Private Practice Ninja, and today we're going to be talking about why it pays to share your experiences with your patients. Patients often come to us because they form a bit of a connection with us. And sometimes the reason patients come to us is because they know that we understand what they're going through. It can actually be a good thing to share our personal experiences about injury or other things that have happened illness-wise with patients. Now, I'm not talking about inviting them around for dinner and sitting them down with Auntie Flo and letting them pat the dog. I'm talking about letting them know that you understand how it feels to be an injured person. Scott Newton is an amazing running physio, and he came to see me because he wanted to find out other ways to reach out to patients. Running physios are plentiful in London. How could he break through the noise that's out there on the web? And as well as being an excellent physio, Scott is a wicked runner. He can run a marathon in about 2.5 hours. If you're not a marathon runner, that's pretty quick. As with all runners, unfortunately, there came a point where he picked up an injury. And people might be thinking, hang on a minute, he's a physio. Surely he should be robust and completely injury-free. Well, it happens to the best of us. I've certainly had several running injuries myself. I encourage Scott to write a blog about what's happening. And you can read it if you go to londonrunningphysio.com/what I learned from my stress fracture. The cool thing about the name of this blog is What I Learned From. It starts with that, and it's linked to the URL, which is London Running Physio. Patients want to know what it is that we know. So they wanted to understand what Scott had found about his own injury and what he had learned from that, because it's much more powerful when it comes from him. And he took them on a journey in the description of the blog about what his experience was, how he figured out probably what had been going on. In his blog, Scott talked a lot about stress fractures, and he made a point to say that he's a physio in London. What was really good about the blog is it didn't cost him anything to write it apart from his time, and it wasn't promoted in any way with paid cash behind it. It's just out there almost as an organic post. Now the benefits are that if someone puts in stress fracture London into Google, they will find Scott's blog. It comes up on page 1 of Google. It's still there on page 1 of Google. My challenge to you is to think about, is there a time when you've been injured or have had an illness that you can share a little of with patients and maybe share some learning experiences around that? You might be thinking, Kath, that's great, but actually I've never had any big injuries or never had any big illnesses. How can I make this strategy work for me? Well, you would have had several patients by now who've had injury X or illness Y. And what you can do is think back to the experiences that those patients brought to you. What did that invoke in you? And if you need a bit of inspiration, you probably heard the story about a lovely nurse who worked in a hospice. And she spoke with many patients who were at the end stages of their lives and asked them what it was that they regretted that they hadn't done or had gone on in their lives. And pretty much all of them had collective experiences, a bit like they wish they'd allowed themselves to be happier, they wish they had lived the lives that they wanted to lead instead of the lives other people had wanted them to live, etc., etc. And you may be able to draw together experiences from patients. So it could be a blog about what I have learned from the experiences of my patients who are going through breast cancer treatment. So my challenge to you today is, what experiences could you share with patients that will demonstrate empathy and connection with their problem? And how can you write about it in a way that will attract them to come to see you as a clinician? I'm Dr. Cass Spencer-Smith at Private Practice Ninja, and I'll see you next time.